And it's an exhaustion that should not be seen as an exaggeration. It's an exhaustion that should be seen as justified, and that there is a real and a true understanding of why it's there.
That exhaustion.
Even as therapy has become more mainstream, the Black community has had a tough time getting the help that they need.
Pray it away. Prayer doesn't work all the time. You know.
You might pray and God might say, go see a therapist.
How about that? How about that?
Yeah.
You know?
And Iyanla said that so many of us wear that as our badge. You know, those of you, how many of you are the strong ones?
Oh, really?
Goodness, these young men coming from they're just in pain. But you got to survive. So you go into survival mode. And when you go into survival mode, what happened? You shut down.
Right.
You shut down all emotions.
I told my own mother that I was seeing a therapist, and she said, you don't need to see a therapist. What you need to do is see a preacher.
You got Jesus.
Right.
You don't need anything else.
Right.
You know, just buck it up.
I feel like for us, there's so much generational trauma in our DNA, just based off the history of how we, in particular, African Americans, got here.
You know, I don't think that even right now there's been, you know, any kind of record of me saying that I've dealt with depression. You know, so if I'm able to use my battle wounds in order for other people to be healed, I find my own healing. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes, you know, if people can see this and say, oh man, I'm going through the same thing. Man, he looks like me, you know. Maybe I'll call up that therapist.
This thing is bigger than you know. And for those who are believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, that's great. But he saw help also. He talked to the scribes. He talked to the disciples. He talked to people. You need to talk to people. You need to say that I'm not okay right now.
All right. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Luz Cabrales, and I run the Independent Film Creative Hub along with Desiree. And I am the founder of Scranton Films, advocating the arts in the area of Scranton, Pennsylvania. We have created the Independent Film Creative Hub as an outlet for all filmmakers in the local area of Scranton and outside the area to basically make films. You know, make films, collaborate, and be an advocate for the arts. Desiree here with me. She'll do her little introduction and where you can find us, and then we'll tell you again who we are interviewing today.
Yep. Hi, guys. I'm Desiree Zielinski. I collaborate alongside with Luz Cabrales on the Independent Film Creative Hub. I also run NEPA Film Society and am the organizer of the Mystery Box Film Challenge here locally and across. And we're big advocates of bringing film here in the area.
Yes, and today we have Tristien. Tristien, we are going to talk to you about your new documentary and as well as you as a filmmaker. If you maybe want to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit more about what you do, and then we can start. This is a very laid back conversation. Nothing to be worried about. We're not going to drill you on anything, but we do want to know what your process is as a filmmaker. So if you want to introduce yourself just a little bit, and then just tell us a little bit more about yourself and where you're located.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Tristien Marcellus Winfrey. I'm an actor, writer, and director. And we're going to be talking about my documentary, The Healing Begins, that deals with mental health, you know what I mean, and how we channel ourselves and go through these affirmations of what we go through as people and all that.
Right. And we're very excited to have you here. You are in Chicago, correct?
Yeah, Chicago, yep.
Exactly. That's the Windy City, right?
You know, that's what we call it.
Is that what they call it? Okay. Is it actually windy?
Yeah, listen, Chicago has its days. One day it feels like summer, one day it feels like spring, and then, you know, you feel like a tundra one day. So we're getting all type of seasons, but for the most part, we do hold ourselves accountable of being the Windy City.
That's good. That's good. So we want to talk to you about being a filmmaker. We're going to get into your documentary and what it's all about because I believe that you have a very powerful message, and but you're also a very powerful filmmaker. In you have done films, you have done commercials. You're also an actor, producer, and I believe you're even a teacher. And you are advocate. You're doing what we're doing as well in your own way. So
Right.
tell us more about your journey as a filmmaker. What made you get started as a filmmaker, and just sort of when did you realize that this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so the journey of being a filmmaker, I think it started back in 2018 when I produced my first short film called Pain is the Agent of Change, which kind of like dealt with my own personal loss and grief of my brother. And, you know, through that channeling, kind of like worked out what a script was, you know what I mean? And, you know, finding this thing and put this together of telling this story of my own story of like, you know, what it was I was dealing with during that time. And so I kind of just, you know, got the crew, you know what I mean, and got the filmmakers together and said, okay, I have this story, you know what I mean, that I want to tell for a specific type of people, you know what I mean, because so often, you know what I mean, when we talk about grief, and especially Black grief, you know, it's often kind of like just plastered on a news screen, and that's how you hear about it. And you hear all these like different type of stereotypes. So for me, it was like, well, I want to go beyond that. You know what I mean? Why are we not actually sitting down to talk to someone, you know what I mean, about the things that we are going through within our own community? Because, you know, Luz, it's this thing of like, prayed away, or, you know, why are you talking to a therapist? And, you know, you must be crazy. And it's like, no way. You know, this ain't the way to go. So I just got really curious about my own personal grief, where I was just like, I'm going to channel this and also take up therapy to learn about the things that I need to learn to better my own mental health.
And so how did you go about you in your own way as a filmmaker when you said, okay, I think this is a very powerful message that I want to convey? And let's talk about the film process first. For we started the independent film for filmmakers. The independent film creative have as an outlet for filmmakers that maybe are going through the same thing. You know, they're saying, you know what am I going to do with my life? Or maybe I wanted to do this all my life. And how do I get started? Right. And you said you got started a little bit later in life, you know, but you have done creative work throughout. So tell us about that in that sense. What made you say, okay, now I have an idea. Now I want to do a film. And what was your process in that sense? Like getting actors, you yourself have have an agent, so you kind of know a little bit of the behind the scenes. But now, as far as the producer part in making it happen, tell us more a little bit about that.
Well, you know, first things first, I'm an actor. You know what I mean? Stage actor, film, and television. So the whole thing is that, like, I know what a good script is when it's upon me. So that was the easy part of navigating. You know what I mean? I think the biggest part for me was kind of like finding a director of photography. You know what I mean? And then a editor, and then a sound person to, like, you know, hover over me while I'm speaking these lines. Now that stuff was all foreign to me, because as actor, you show up to set with your lines learned, and you do what you need to do, and then you bounce. You know what I mean? But this was a really technical aspect that I knew nothing about. You know what I mean? So I kind of, like, you know, I was really green to this. So I'm like, okay, what does a wide is? What does a up close shot?
Right. So do you write your own script as well, or do you collaborate with anyone on that part of it?
I wrote my own script. My friends, you know what I mean, who are other actors and all that, I was like, okay, hey, can you read this? You know what I mean, to see if it is actually decent. And it actually turned out to be a really spectacular job done when I had wrote it. So once I wrote it, you know what I mean, I put it in the hands of our DP and our editor and all that. And then before I knew it, there was crew, you know what I mean? And we, you know, talked about different shots that we wanted to portray and different images and storytelling and all that.
Okay, no, so that's really good because someone who's getting started, like Desiree and I just made a small film for the mystery box, which we were talking about it a little bit behind the scenes, but we're trying to encourage filmmakers to make their own films, whether it's something that they think is, is not up to where they want it to be. What advice do you think we can do when you said, okay, we're looking at actors, we're looking what is, and I didn't mean to say advice, I meant to say like the process, right? Now you have your actors in place, now you have to do it. How do you manage that, being you yourself an actor? Because I think you acted in your film as well,
Yeah.
for that one, right?
You know, I think the biggest thing that I always tell folks is to create a story first. You know what I mean? Forget about the whole idea of wanting to write a script. Like, don't even think about that. What story do you want to tell as an artist? You know what I mean? What's not out there? For me, I thrive myself on saying, you can't be what you don't see. You know what I mean? And even in some film and television shows, I still don't see me enough. You know what I mean? Locks, you know what I mean? And, brother, that's, that has my same appeal. So our voices and all that are still, being implemented out into the world. And, I think that great films really do showcase like a true test of time.
Right.
You know what I mean? You could look back at things and be like, what? They were talking about this and that. You know what I mean? And here we are present day, telling these stories that need to be told. And as far as getting a crew and juggle and putting on different hats, I'm gonna pat myself on the back because I think I do a really great job of knowing how to navigate when I'm talking to specific people about what it is that I need or need them to do. Directing Tristien is different from acting Tristien.
Right.
editing Tristien is different from producing Tristien. So different hats and different strokes for different folks. But my thing is I have a really big vision, you know what I mean? And I'm like very driven to the point where I'm like, it has to happen this specific, this way.
Right, and you have to, once you get started on something, you have to finish it, right?
You got to listen, y'all. Listen, if I don't tell you nothing else, finish what you started.
Exactly. That's great advice. And Desiree wanted to point out something about we could kind of shift to your documentary. So you did a film, and now if I'm not mistaken, that was your first film, correct? The first one we talked
the
about.
short film, the
Right.
short Pain is the Agent of Change was my very first short film.
Yeah. And did that open up before we get into the documentary, did that open up other doors? Like, let's say, okay, now you finish something, now you're like, okay, let's put it in the film festival circuit. Like, how was that process before you got to the documentary? And then Desiree, I think, is gonna point out a little bit more about the documentary itself. I'm gonna kind of let her ask those questions for you.
Yeah, Luz, I think for me, there's several ways that you could approach premiering your film or showcasing your film. And for me, I kind of just rented out a theater, you know what I mean? And set a group of family and friends to talk about these things and just like forget, that we're being part of a film festivals or receiving any accolades or anything. Just primarily to just have the conversation. And so the documentary, The Healing Begins, it all started because this is primarily just going to be interviews about people, talking about, their loved ones and how they, were in therapy and, going through the things that they needed to go through to talk about it. And Luz, I was interviewing my people, and they were just dropping gems, and I was like, yo, I think I have something bigger on my head because I didn't anticipate my making a documentary. But as I sat back and just watched it, I said, yeah, I got something big on my hands where I'm like, I need to give this a special place. I have my short film, but I also need to give room for this too, because it's just a beautiful job well done at the Rosanna, Leah, and Raphael, telling the stories of the 5 stages of grief that we go through as people and doing it in a very healthy way. You know what I mean? So that's been my whole motive and game plan about making short films and film in general.
No, and that makes sense because a lot of times we start with something. We as long as we start with the idea, it's always gonna morph into something different. Maybe it will be just a slightly different from what we intended, but then a lot of times it turns into something completely different. And I know Desiree, now is your chance. I don't want to hog the conversation, but I know you had some of the tougher questions because unfortunately we are going through a lot of things in the world that are very painful, very painful for many races, black people, Asians, Americans, and Mexican Americans, really. But as far as, without leaving anyone, as far as an artist, right? I know Desiree had more questions about how do you deal with that. So go ahead, Desiree, and ask the questions, and then we can kind of go back and forth on that.
Yeah, Tristien, I did watch the documentary. I thought it was a wonderful, very emotional documentary, and it is definitely a conversation that needs to be said and be out in the world. I did see the point of view, and it was a wonderful experience to see the point of view for the Black community. But I also, this goes beyond the Black community. I think it goes beyond all demographics. That I love what one of your interviewees mentions, that everyone's going through something. And I think people need to understand, if you're meeting people on the street or talking with someone, they've gone through stuff. Like I've gone through things. I'm sure Luz, Tristien, you've mentioned you've gone through your own grief as well. And what with American society, I think American society in general, I think there needs to be more conversation about going to therapy, talking about things that are not very comfortable. Yeah. And what are things that society should be saying? What should we be talking about and should be made more aware in society?
Yeah. We live in a culture where everything is so fast paced, and we're so, what are you feeling? You know what I mean? You got to get money. You know what I mean? You got to get to the next thing. You know what I mean? And it's so bad, because when we see some of our favorites, fall down, and we say, whoa, they were showcasing signs of this early on, but we chose not to see that, or see that person. And I always say, like you said earlier, we meet people, everyone's going to be dealing with something. And I think that in this world, everybody, you need to be kind. Yeah. Point blank, period. You have to lead with kindness and all that. So, I know it's a hard thing to to do in the world, but you lead with kindness, you'll be on the right path and all that. And as far as the world as itself, the more conversations that we have, the better. When I premiered this in front of the audience, everybody stood up at the end and just started hugging on one another. Why? Because it's that common thing that we go through as people. You know what I mean? You should be able to freely talk about, okay, yes, I went through that challenging thing in my life. How did I overcome that? By doing X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? And not thinking of, as yourself as crazy, or, you're crazy if you ask for help. Right. No, everybody needs the help.
Yeah, and it's definitely very important, especially like Desiree said, we're all going through something. So now, but as far as the artist part, right, you are, we're dealing with our own issues, and then we put on top of that our creativity. How do you do that? Specifically in this documentary, you said, okay, so I was asking other questions, and then it led to something else. Now that's creativity sparking, right? And you're saying, okay, maybe I have something bigger than I thought. How do you deal with that in the sense? Because it is a very difficult theme to talk about with people, and you're not sure if they're going to be open to share. So how do you deal with that in your creative approach?
Well, it's so interesting that you say that, because while I was interviewing them, my grief was still fresh of my own. Right. So while I was interviewing them, I'm like, geez, I'm still unpacking my stuff, and here I am receiving things from other people. And I'm like, I had to take about a week or so apart from each interviewee, because I'm like, y'all are talking about some heavy stuff. And then now I got to edit it while I'm editing my short film. And it was definitely an emotional roller coaster for me. But it was that thing to where I knew single-handedly that it was in divine order that I was doing the right thing with this project. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think for me, the biggest thing was just like sitting back and knowing that like, okay, this is bigger than me. You know what I mean? My project is bigger than me. This documentary is bigger than me. And to be able to teach with it and people to see it and feel something, that's what it is. That's what it's about.
Right. And is that something that while you're doing it, do you have to sort of detach yourself from your own feelings? Or maybe you got more into that in order to be able to finish this documentary?
I'm curious. I'm a curious person. So I definitely leaned into myself a little bit more about why does a person feel that way? Or can we go back, the pathology and see what happened during that specific time and all that? I've just, yeah, it's just intuitive in me to just like, lead with my body and my heart.
Definitely. And I think that's all we have, right? Left at the end. Like, it's our creativity, it's our voices, just making stuff that is important to us and that we want to share.
Right.
So as far as that, we're gonna bring it back to something a little lighter. So you said you were doing your film and the documentary at the same time. A lot of filmmakers out there are, seasoned filmmakers. But there are others that are starting out, like I mentioned. So in that sense, tell us more about the process with that. You're doing two projects at the same time, but one of them came out before, and now you have something that you're working. Like, what is the process as far as the production part of it? In that, at least what you encounter.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful for my short film team because when I sat down with each and every one of them, they knew, what my vision was single-handedly. You know what I mean? So grateful for that. Now, when I was in the editing room by myself for my documentary, it was just me. I didn't have anyone to turn to or like, to look to. So it was kind of like a own therapy session in itself. And you walk through this project, and I know I mentioned that we deal with the 5 stages of grief, bargaining and like acceptance and denial and depression and all those other ones. And the people were talking, but I didn't set up the questions. Like, okay, let's talk about bargaining. You know what I mean? Those things just like naturally just like come up in a conversation. And as I was piecing together this documentary, I was like, here we are. Talking about the acceptance of something or the denial of something. And so, my process was very, blinders on and just getting very articulate about like what it is that we want to share when we talk about grief.
And as far as your festival run, so now you completed those two films. What as far as being on the festival and like screening your stuff, what was your process? Did you were you doing anything prior to the pandemic as far as screening your film places, and now how has that differ from what you're doing now with the documentary? Because it might be a little different, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's definitely different nowadays. So the film now, the documentary, it's fresh, it's new, so it's definitely been submitted to film festivals right now. So it hasn't had its own chance to like shine just yet. But as far as the short film, Payne has done like an extraordinary job of being out since 2019 and being part of like your festival and Chicago Filmmakers and Stony Island Arts Bank, and I get to teach with it, and my students get to see it and watch it, and we talk about process making and mental health business also. It's like the mediums that I teach on. It's like I'm thankful for it. Really thankful.
And you were talking to us about that you're also a teacher, and you also you work with did you say middle school or elementary school kids?
Yeah, so I work with Court Theater, and we teach students on the south side of Chicago, and also work with CAPE, which is Chicago Partners education team, and we work on the west side of Chicago, with middle school students.
And I know Desiree and I were talking about that, how hard it is to juggle work, and life, and then still try to do creative stuff. And I think Desiree, you were saying something about like filmmakers that they really it gets to them that they have to work more than doing creative stuff. And unfortunately, how do you juggle that? Because I know, like you said, we have to make a living,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
also need to be creative in order to help our minds, in order to help our creativity.
Yeah.
So in your experience, how have you dealt with that within the years?
Well, prior before this whole pandemic thing happened, I used to be a key holder at a store called the Thai Bar, where have to wear like suits and jackets and dress people up and all that. And when this thing happened, I couldn't be in front of people anymore. I had to hop into my teaching bag.
Of course.
and it really just brought out the best in me, because my life is, built around passion and purpose. You know what I mean? And when those two things are ignited in me, it's like, okay, I can get paid for actually, teaching what I know. You know what I mean? And also teaching, to children that who are curious about about filmmaking and how stories get told and all that. So to have all that insight and knowledge, listen, I'm not gonna go to the grave with all these gifts.
Right. You have to put it out there, especially for the younger generation, right?
Yeah. You definitely gotta put it out there, because what we do as artists is it's generosity. You know what I mean? It's a public service, what we do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And sometimes we don't see the millions and trillions, and sometimes we do. You know what I mean? But you get your stories out there and you tell it in the most audacity.
Right. And I mean, I think it is great because just to be able to give back, like you said, we have to be nice. Like that is really what we should all follow all the time: kindness, regardless of anything. That's the first thing that comes in. And to be able to give that back, like you said, you're working, on short films, you're working on documentaries, you're working with younger people. I know Desiree had one of the last questions of the day, so we don't hold you up too much. And we try to ask that question to all filmmakers that come to the Scranton Talks, just to make sure that anyone out there, maybe whoever is watching right now or whoever may watch in the future, because we're going to archive these conversations, we want to make sure that they hear what you have to say on that. And I know it was as far as the advice, Desiree, if you want to ask that last question and kind of like, we'll do a little plug on what you're doing on your website and what your next project is.
Yeah.
Well, I have two questions. The first question is, what challenges have you came across while you were filming your documentary? I mean, I'm sure everyone has experienced who's worked on a film set some sort of challenge that happened that you had to overcome. And the second question is what Luz was saying, is that what advice would you give to those who are interested in filmmaking, or advice that you have given your younger self that was starting out?
Yeah. So those are great questions. One of the challenges that I faced, in my documentary was negating how much time I wanted this documentary to be. Because right now, I think it's, I believe, at 35 minutes or something, which is a nice cap. But like I said earlier, Ralph and Rosanna and Leah were just dropping so much knowledge to where I didn't want that to be like a snooze fest, you know what I mean, in a documentary. So I wanted to. That was one of my challenges, because at first it was about 50 minutes, and I was like, okay, let's see what we could cut or dial back and all that. So that was one of my challenges that I incurred with my documentary. And Desiree, hit me with that second question again.
What would you give to those who want to get into filmmaking? What advice would you give them? Or if you wanted to give advice to your younger self that was starting out, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, my advice for people that want to get started in filmmaking is to just tell the story that you want to tell, point blank period. You know what I mean? put it on paper, have your friends look at it, think about it, you know what I mean? And thinking about it in a very intentional type of way when you do this type of work. And just do it. You know, your life is short. Why not? Just do it.
Right, exactly. So we have some questions on Facebook, but let me just pull it up. That way, let's see.
Thanks to my mom. Thanks.
Oh,
Mom.
they're from your mom. That's good. So we have someone. We have Brenda that says greetings from Rockaway, Queens.
Okay.
So awesome. Thank you for watching. And we have. Do you have a personal muse to help you with creativity?
You have a personal muse to help me with creativity.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Let's see. Let's hear it, Tristien.
That's a beautiful question. My mother and my grandmother, they are my muses. You know what I mean? They are the ones that really guide me, you know what I mean, along the way, that steer me in the way of, like, you know, you being your truth. You know what I mean? You tell your truth, you know what I mean? And that's what both of these projects mean to me. And my brother's birthday was actually yesterday. And we'll show I think you have the short film on hand. If you do, Lose Dude, you got to do to show it. But
okay, great. I will. You know, I will.
My short film to be, I think it's about 3 years later, where I see myself, and I have more of a peace. You know what I mean? And it's getting easier as the years go by. You know what I mean? And it doesn't feel like this big slump day of, like, okay, my brother's birthday is today and I feel sad. I was like, you know, I'm at peace with this. You know what I mean? And I'm at peace with this because I get to teach with it. I get to have conversations about it. I get to lead with love about it. And that's how you keep their voices alive, you know what I mean, them alive as people. And I'm forever grateful for that.
No, that's very important, and that's very powerful, because I think we all have someone or more than one person, you know, that really brings the best in all of us, right?
That was a good question. That was a beautiful question.
That was a beautiful question. Thank you to Desiree's mom. So that's amazing. I'm gonna check more. I was trying to open the file so I can show you your film maybe at the end. I don't remember how long it was, but I know I have it. Might as well.
13, 14 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, why not? Maybe we can end it with that, you know. But
hey, let's do it.
Why not? Yeah, I mean, we can do whatever we want, right? Yeah, we're just having fun. Let me look for it right now. I know I have it. That way I can put it up because I think that's a very, very powerful. We can't show the documentary right now because it's going through the film circuit, but I know the film has opened up, you know, a lot of that for you. So if anyone can hold that for a second, maybe Desiree, if you wanna keep the conversation going. I mean, it's all about ScrantonTalks anyway, you know. We are very laid back and we just love doing this.
Let me know if you want me to send it to you, Lou. I can always.
Yeah, I know I had it here. Let me just find it out, and then we can go from there. So tell us something funny. Okay, something funny that happened maybe during your film. There's always something that happens in like Desiree says.
You know what? I don't think there's anything. So as far as my short film goes, I wouldn't say there's anything funny, but
oh no. I mean in the production part of it. There's always some fun times.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't want to give it away because we're gonna watch it in a little bit, but let's just say I had to step in and do something that I was not ready to do.
Okay.
And that was very traumatic for me. And I remember talking to my grandmother on the phone, and I said, I don't know how I dealt with that. And she says, your brother was working right through you in that moment. So
look at that.
I don't want to give it away. But,
don't give it away. Don't give it away. If you don't mind, then sending me that link, and I'll do it right now. That way I can put it up. And I don't want to kill the link here, and you know, then we won't have it. But let me see. So everyone, hang out. I'm going to watch the I'm gonna show the trailer again so everybody can see it for the ones that are just joining.
Yeah, but thanks everyone for joining us, and be sure to follow the Independent Film Creative Hub on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram. So stay up to date for what we're doing here.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna show the trailer, and then we'll come back in a few minutes just to and then I'll put in that movie. So if anyone wants to hang out, they can do that. But we're still here. All right.
Do you feel exhausted by the headlines?
And it's an exhaustion that should not be seen as an exaggeration. It's an exhaustion that should be seen as justified, and that there is a real and a true understanding of why it's there.
That exhaustion.
Even as therapy has become more mainstream, the Black community has had a tough time getting the help that they need.
Pray it away. Prayer doesn't work all the time. You know.
You might pray and God might say, go see a therapist.
How about that? How about that?
Yeah.
You know.
And Iana said that so many of us wear that as our badge. You know, those of you, how many of you are the strong ones?
Oh, really?
Goodness, these young men coming from these, they're just in pain. But you got to survive. So you go into survival mode. And when you go into survival mode, what happened? You shut down.
Right.
You shut down all emotions.
I told my own mother that I was seeing a therapist, and she said, you don't need to see a therapist. What you need to do is see a preacher.
You got Jesus.
Right.
You don't need anything else.
Right.
You know, just buck it up.
I feel like for us, there's so much generational trauma in our DNA, just based off the history of how we, in particular, African Americans, got here.
You know, I don't think that even right now there's been, you know, any kind of record of me saying that I've dealt with depression. You know, so if I am able to use my battle wounds in order for other people to be healed, I find my own healing. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes, you know, if people can see this and say, oh man, I'm going through the same thing. Man, he looks like me, you know. Maybe I'll call up that therapist.
This thing is bigger than you know. And for those who are believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, that's great. But he saw help also. He talked to the scribes. He talked to the disciples. He talked to people. You need to talk to people. You need to say that I'm not okay right now.
All right, guys, we are back, and I'm going to put the film in just a few seconds. Now, this is not a documentary. This is the short film that led to the documentary. Correct. But before I do that, I want to thank Tristien for doing this. I think you have made a wonderful, wonderful documentary. You know, Desiree and I have watched it, and people can watch it. You know, I think once you're out of the festival circuit, right? What are your plans with it for now? So people can know where to look for you and maybe how they can stay updated with this.
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is tmarcellus.w. But as far as getting out there and where I really want to showcase this project with mental health organizations, you know what I mean, before any film festivals have been, touch it. So we're still working out details on how we want the story to be told, but I definitely want to cater this to mental health organizations first.
Awesome. And the last thing will be what is next? Do you have something planned? as far as anything creative?
So I'm cooking up a feature film called Raising Thuio. So details on that will come definitely later. Hence is why I'll be probably moving out west.
Oh, very cool. So we may see you on the big screen then, because you're also an actor.
Hey, yeah, you'll see me there. Listen, I wanna get into everything. You know what I mean? I want to learn. I want to be a lifelong learner.
Perfect. I think you already are. So
Hey,
that's a good thing. So again, Desiree, I didn't mean to cut you off before. If you just plug in our independent film creative hub in our social media, and then we'll call it a night. For those who are staying, I'm going to show just a little bit more information on Tristien at the end, and then I'm gonna put in the film. That way you can check it out. Okay. So take it away.
Everyone, thanks so much for watching us. Be sure to follow the Independent Film Creative Hub on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram just to see what we're doing and more talks that we'll have up in the future and more events.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you guys, and we are signing off.
Keep pushing, all right? Go faster, push, harder. All right, go left.
About to start crying. Get up. Pia, see this? Push it. Harder. Again. Push it. There you go. You look at me. You do not cry. Do you hear me? You be strong. You hear me? You say it. I'm strong.
I am strong.
You say it again. I'm strong.
I am strong.
All right. I don't want to hear any of that crying.
The victim, later identified as Daryl Hines, was shot near Colony Park and collapsed outside the grocery store Pay for Less. Police Chief Ted Espinoza said he was taken to an area hospital where he was pronounced dead. Striking the other multiple times.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Some days are better than other days.
As expected. It's all a part of the grieving process. Take as much time as you need.
Well, my grieving is invisible. According to everybody, it appears that I'm looking well and, you know, looking fantastic, I guess. But I feel like I'm dying underneath. It's like nobody knows how to connect anymore. I feel better if they just say, you must be feeling like shit.
Understandable. What about your family?
Family's family. But since my brother died, it actually brought my family a lot closer. It's funny how death does that. We would sit around telling old jokes, recalling memories. I guess it helps when I find myself in a dark place.
What is that dark place?
Loneliness. I think about my nephew who's going to grow up without a father like I did.
In our last session, you mentioned how tough it was writing the obituary. I commend you on your strength. We last talked about you bringing in something that belonged to your brother. What did you bring?
I didn't bring in anything.
In order for this to work, you got to be ready to push through the difficult circumstances.
Push hard. Again.
Close your eyes. Imagine your entire existence is like an iceberg. From the tip, we see the surface because it's partially visible. This represents 10 to 15% of your walking, talking, and carrying on with life. It's become the norm for you to keep yourself busy with your work and daily tasks. From the outside, everything seems to be fine. Now, on the lower half of the iceberg is 85 to 90% of what we don't see. This represents your pain, vulnerability, and grief that you're working through. You don't show this side. It's a hard pill to swallow. The difficult part of this is allowing yourself to process, to access what's going on beneath the surface. It's been 4 months since your brother's death, and I think...
I didn't come here for you to remind me of that.
Why did you come here? What do you expect from coming here?
Well, I have to come here.
I know that, but what do you want?
Well, I'll take some weed if you have some.
Unfortunately, I cannot help you with that.
Listen, I'm sorry. I didn't think a black therapist existed. Why is there only a 5% of black graduates with a PhD in psychology and the other 76% are white? You ask me, what do I expect coming here? Well, I come here to talk to someone who looks like me.
I know. Within our community, mental health is not talked about so freely at the dinner table. And you're right. The statistics are daunting. We don't even armor our children, but yet we send them out to war. I've been a therapist for over 20 years, baby. Black people are not sitting on my couch seeking help like they need to. Julian, you have to be responsible to lean into your well-being. Your nephew will be looking to you to tell him about his father.
I just hate how strong I have to be all the time.
Have you allowed yourself to be vulnerable?
You look at me.
I come from a background of strong individuals. I didn't have time to be vulnerable. My family's pathology on what has been passed down to me isn't helping me right now. So no, I haven't allowed myself to be weak. It's like the minute that I got off that plane, I was so wrapped up in being strong for everybody, I forgot about myself. It's like my childhood all over again. I didn't have a moment to cry in my mother's arms.
There you go. You got it. You got it.
Holding on to all this pain, Dr. Lovestone, it's heavy. So I'm trying to take the proper steps to get to a place of joy. I'm not expecting you to have all the answers, but you told me pain is the agent of change. I would like to work through my grief so I can move forward with my life from a place of joy. And I did bring in something today. It's a pair of my brother's sneakers and the eulogy from the funeral.
Whenever you're ready.
We're all placed on this earth for a brief moment, but we imagine that we have all the time in the world. The truth is that we don't. You never know when it'll be your last time seeing someone. So whatever you do, make sure you cherish that time that you spend with them. Many people knew my brother and I were like oil and water. Two different people, complete opposites. But we understood each other.
Spent so much time with my head down, my blessings went overhead. I missed them, they ain't gone, no. My guardian angel is watching over me, got love for everybody, even when I'm down. No, the dreamer in me can't stop this hustle. No, the dreamer in me overcame these struggles. Cause as long as God got my back, then it's alright. So I keep my hands in the air. It's a party. It's a party when you waking up right. It's a party when the hater can't kill your vibe. So I'ma celebrate every day, a birthday or a wedding cake. Even when I'm low, I'm getting high off life. Hey, do what you gotta do, getting high, that's fine. Long as you find peace in the turmoil, the stress will disappear, blessings will come through like. There's always a bright day on the horizon, so I'm up late running. Early morning, I'm trying to get that bell. And success stays on my mind, I'm trying to reach my goal, so I keep climbing. You can't stop me from shining, no. If pain is an agent of change, love is an intimate thing. You need to love yourself like you know you love. Then check every first of the month, battling personal demons. Imagine how it feel when you finally beat them. Cause it's a lonely feeling when you feeling worthless. Keep a smile on your face, gotta know your purpose. As long as God got your back, then it's alright. There's always a bright day on the horizon, so I'm up late running. Early morning, I'm trying to get that back. And success stays on my mind, I'm trying to reach so I keep climbing. You can't stop me from shining, no. And I know I'm blessed, I know I can do anything if I really put my mind to it. These days I've been trying to find a better me, cause ain't nobody got time to watch it go by. So I wake up every morning with a smile on my face, thank the man upstairs for everything, then I'm on my way, cause I know I'm gonna be somebody, so gotta put my plan in motion. There's always a brighter day on the horizon, so I'm up late running. Early morning I'm trying to get that bell. And success stays on my mind, I'm trying to reach my goal, so I keep climbing. You can't stop me.